Velkommen og god dag alle sammen. Welcome back to the series on the channel where we use the actual translations and academic interpretations and theories about what the Norse gods and deities actually mean. When we do this, we see that the myths are not just fairy tales meant for kids, but they are things to symbolize different aspects of nature and the cosmos. And today we are translating Buri, ancestor of all the gods, at the beginning of the universe, when there was nothing else besides the giant Ymir and the cow Audhumbla. Then Audhumbla was licking the ice until a man came out of it, and that man was named Buri, and he gave birth to Bor, which was the father of Odin and his brothers, and all the gods descended from them. Did our ancestors believe in all this nonsense? Well, let's take a look here. As usual, we will look at the translation first. So Buri is pretty simple. A lot of these gods have very unclear translations and they're debated, but Buri translated just means a provider or producer. It could also be another name to refer to father. So that one is pretty agreed upon by scholars, but some others link it to the Old Norse burin, which meant born. So both of them are possible, but maybe it's even meant to purposely be a double meaning. But anyway, let's take a look at the mentions of Buri in the ancient sources. So we actually only find Buri in the Prose Edda, and he's mentioned in there twice. Once in the section Gylfangning, and also in the Skaldic poem section, the Skaldskaparmal. And that explains basically the story that we all know, how the giant Ymir was the first being and he got milk from Audhumbla, and Audhumbla got nourishment by licking the ice, the salty ice, where the cow eventually uncovered Buri, the ancestor of all the gods. So as you know, the Prose Edda is not super reliable. It was written by a Christian, Snorri Sturluson, a couple hundred years after pagan times, and he would have not understood the actual myths that his pagan ancestors believed in. If Buri was in the poetic example, for example, or any of the Skaldic poems, I would say okay, maybe, but Buri is not mentioned once in any compositions from pagan times, so I'm not convinced that the pagan ancestors we have even believed in a deity called Buri. I will make a note though, we do see a reference to Buri in the Poetic Edda in one poem, Völuspá. Here you see in stanza 4, it talks about Bur's sons. But we think that is just Bor, or Bor's son, which is Odin, Vili, and Ve, so that's not really Buri. Also, in stanza 14, Völuspá, we find the name here Buri, but that is a dwarf, actually, when the witch, the Völva, is listing off the names of some dwarves. There's a dwarf named Buri, too, but so there's no real reference in the Poetic Edda to the Buri that we are talking about here. But I'm going to read a little section here from the Prose Edda, Gylfangning, like you see here. She licked the ice rocks, which are salty, and the first day that she licked the blocks, speaking about the cow, Audhumbla by the way, there came forth from the blocks in the evening a man's hair. The second day, a man's head. The third day, the whole man was there. He is named Buri. He was of fair feature, great and mighty. He begat a son called Bor. So that explains the story of Buri that most of us know. Just be aware that this may be something that the author Snorri just created in the Prose Edda, and it's not something that reflected actual beliefs of the pagan ancestors. We do know for sure that Snorri mixed in myth with real history all the time. The whole Prose Edda pretty much is just that. It mixes in the gods and myths that represent different aspects of nature with actual historical events and people that we know lived and that we know happened. So Snorri did not really know where to draw the line between myth and symbolism and reality, and that's what I think happened here, just like Audhumbla. You can watch my video yesterday about Audhumbla that I released. I'll put that in the link in the description. I speak about that a little bit more, but really quickly I'll go over it. I think Audhumbla represents the cattle that humans lived off of at the end of the last ice age. It was about that time that we have the first evidence of humans domesticating cattle. Then, as their cattle population grew, they would have been licking and digging through the ice, making the ice and glaciers start to recede across the lands like you see in the map here. Of course, this is not the reason that the ice receded at the end of the last ice age. We know today that that's not true. It's, you know, the Earth started to heat up around 10,000 BC because of Earth's rotation, you know, more sun on the northern hemisphere, CO2 levels rising, atmosphere stuff, things like that. We know that now, but our ice age ancestors did not know that. All they would have seen is that they started domesticating cattle, and then the cattle licked the ice, and slowly the ice started to disappear, putting life and new lands for the people to settle there. It is these lands that I think Buri represents. The last ice age we see lasted about 100,000 years, like you see here. And the land of our people was completely covered in glaciers, so many of our ancestors over that time would have died, and others would have been pushed as far south as possible. For tens of thousands of years, they would have lived on small strips of land along the Mediterranean Sea and the ocean, and between glaciers. It would have been an infertile desert, you know, infertile with nothing growing, no stable food sources besides, you know, cattle and milk, really. And then as the ice and glaciers receded north, it would have uncovered new lands that people could settle in again, like their ancestors did 100,000 years before. So if you look at Buri's name here, it means birth, produce, provide, and even father it could be. That's just like the land was born again. It had a rebirth after the ice melted and provided land and food for humans. Taking back their ancestral land from the ice after 100,000 years. Just like the mention in Gylfaginning, first Buri's hair was uncovered. I think this represents the grass, and then his head was uncovered. That represents the growth of the plants and life, and then finally his whole body was uncovered, which was the fully developed land that provided for humans again. This is what I think makes the most sense. I'll also make a note, there are some theories that Buri was the same as the god Tyr, which we think is the main chief god in very old times, so even before Odin was the chief god. So there are some scholars that think Buri is a sky god like that, the most important god for the humans in the Bronze Age or even before in time. That could be very possible. I haven't heard any other academic theories about Buri, so let me know if you guys have any good ones. That's why I make these videos with interpretations and theories. I always explain which ones are mine, which ones are other people's, which ones we know for sure, and which ones are debated. But whatever I do, I will always cite my sources and have the evidence to back up whatever theory I'm presenting, because I'm just so sick and tired of dumb people calling themselves Norse pagan and just completely inventing their own theories and things and not providing any of their sources to back it up. They're just talking out of their ass, and it's not okay. So don't listen to these people. Instead, I want you to decide what you believe in yourself. Look at the evidence and look at what the sources say and develop your own theories. This is why I make these videos. It's to present the evidence that we have so we can all get our minds together and work together to develop the best theories and discover the lost beliefs of our people. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you have any other theories about Buri, I would love to hear them. But that's about it for this video. Vi ses nästa gång.